It didn't start with a fight, it started with a joke, the kind that sounds harmless until it cuts deep enough to draw blood. Jenna stood in front of the mirror, black dress hugging her like a secret she didn't want to share. I told her she looked stunning. She didn't even blink, just adjusted her earring and said, "Careful, Thomas. Maybe I'll find two men half your age tonight." Laughter exploded around the dinner table, sharp and metallic, like silverware hitting the floor. My smile stayed, but something inside me didn't. That's the thing about jokes. They're often where the truth hides. And that night, every man at that table laughed, except the one who finally understood he was the joke. I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I just decided that night she'd laugh once more, but not the way she expected. Subscribe, and don't miss what happened next. I drove us back through quiet streets where the same porch lights always burn. The house opened like a mouth that had nothing left to say. TV on, volume low, that soft blue glow that makes everything look colder than it is. I called Kyle, more out of habit than hope. Voicemail. My own voice sounded strange, like I was checking on a stranger. Jenna sank into the couch with her phone, thumbs flying. That little private smile, the one I haven't earned in years, curled up on her face. A text landed. She laughed. Not big, not loud, but the kind that moves through drywall. I stood in the kitchen, filled a glass, and listened to ice crack inside it. Tiny pops, tiny fractures, like a warning you only hear if you're alone. It hit me then. A married man can live in a crowded house and still not have a single place to put his heart. I thought about saying something, about asking who she was texting, about the joke at dinner, but the words stacked up behind my teeth and refused to march. She laughed again. The house answered with silence. I drank water that tasted like winter and swallowed the question whole. Somewhere under that quiet, something in me shifted, and it didn't shift back. I went to the hallway, looked at our wedding photo, and felt the first bruise rise where no one could see. That photo used to make me smile. Jenna pressed to my side, June sun pouring over both of us like a promise. I could hear the old soundtrack in my head, her laugh mixing with mine, no sharp edges, no audience to impress. Back then, our jokes landed soft. They said, "I'm with you," not, "I'm above you." Tonight, the glass in that frame looked dusty, and so did the memory. I wiped it with my sleeve and caught my reflection next to us, older, heavier around the eyes. I tried to ask her if we were okay. It came out as, "Long day?" She didn't look up. "Big quarter," she said. "Lots going on." The conversation died before it learned to walk. I stood there thinking about the new kind of joke, the kind you tell to win a room, even if it cost you your man. Every time she tossed one across a table, I felt it hit a bone I couldn't name. You don't bleed from those, you bruise, slowly, quietly, and you learn to wear long sleeves. I almost said, "That joke at dinner, why?" But I tasted the argument from a mile away, the eye roll, the "it was just fun," the counterattack about being too sensitive. I let it pass. I let it all pass. My phone lit up with nothing. The house breathed. Somewhere in the walls, a pipe clicked. I set the frame back and told myself I'd sleep. I didn't. The question I swallowed earlier kept pounding from the inside, asking to be born. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the kind of quiet that makes clocks sound ruthless. I grabbed my phone and scrolled my contacts like I was shopping for a friend. Names I hadn't used in years. Guys who moved, guys who remarried, numbers that belonged to the version of me that still believed weekends fixed things. I hovered over Kyle, then backed out. Midnight favors have a price. I thought about calling my mother, Eleanor. She's up early, not late. I pictured her sitting on the edge of her bed, worrying her rosary over a problem she can't touch. I put the phone face down. She doesn't need this. I walked to the front window. The porch light threw a small circle on clean concrete. Every house on our street was dark. No trucks warming up, no late cigarettes, no neighbor to nod at through the glass. When did I disappear? Not in a day. In inches, in yeses, in jokes I let pass because everyone else was laughing. Back in bed, Jenna's face glowed blue in the dark. She was still online, thumbs moving, little bursts of silent joy aimed somewhere I couldn't reach. I turned to the wall, an arm's length from my wife and a mile from her. Men talk about loneliness like it's a weather report. Mine felt like a room I paid for but didn't belong in. Somewhere between her screen and my silence, I went missing. I could feel it. I was invisible in my own house. Sleep wouldn't come, so the party replayed in my head. The toast, the clink, that line thrown like a dart. Young blood. It echoed in the spot where pride lives. I tried to laugh at it alone and couldn't. A face flashed up. Aiden, the office favorite. Gym tight, easy grin. The kind of confidence you lease when you're 29 and markets rise just because you walked in. I told myself I wasn't jealous. I'm 52. I know what lasts. I also know contempt when it smiles. My phone lit the ceiling. One old thread sat there like a bruise you forgot about. I opened it. Ding. We're the power duo at work. Her words, months ago. I stared until the letters wavered. I remembered how she'd read me that text, laughing, eyes bright in a way I hadn't caused in a long time. I put the phone down, then picked it up again. Ding. Calendar reminder. Nothing important. Still, my chest kicked like I'd been tagged in a game I didn't agree to play. I whispered the excuse men use when they're trying not to bleed. I'm not jealous. I'm tired. But there it was. The small, honest sting under the bigger, tired lie. Not fear of losing her to someone younger. Fear of already being replaced by a better audience. The phrase power duo burned on the screen, neon in a dark bar. I clicked it off and lay in the stone-cold light. The room dimmed. The ache didn't. The next week it happened again. Different crowd, same sting. PTA meetup in the school library, fluorescent lights, the smell of dry paper and coffee that's been reheated too many times. Someone cracked a joke about aging dads and slow tech. Jenna didn't miss a beat. Oh, Thomas? He still thinks a cloud is the thing that rains. The table laughed, grateful for something easy to agree on. I laughed too, not because it was funny, because it was safer. That's how you survive groups. You nod, you smirk, you don't make a scene. I could feel my face doing the right thing while something behind it stepped back and shut the door. On the drive home, I loosened my tie like I was taking a rope off my throat. Porch lights slid by like little verdicts. I told myself it was small. I told myself it was just public play. But I knew what I'd done. I'd joined the audience for my own humiliation. At home, I hung the tie on the chair and stood there in the quiet, tasting that PTA laughter in my mouth like metal. Sleep didn't come. It sat on the other side of the room and watched me. The truth kept walking circles in my head. A man can be useful, generous, steady, and still become the joke people are thankful for. I smiled when she needed me to. And in that smile, a piece of me went missing. Later that week, she brought him up again. Aiden, the office wonder. He just gets it, Thomas. Markets, timing, the pace. She said it like we were comparing shoes, not loyalties. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and nodded. That's what you do when you're trying not to start a war over smoke. She didn't put me down exactly. She just lifted him up and let gravity do the rest. Mark, you don't really understand my world, she added, casual, like weather. I felt the floor lean. I didn't argue. I've learned there's a kind of fight you lose by entering. Her phone lay face down, screen winking whenever a message landed. She'd flip it, thumb flying, laugh under her breath, private joy with a cover charge I couldn't pay. I told myself it was harmless. Office banter, a lightning rod for stress. But the house got a little colder each time his name turned up, like we'd cracked a window in January and decided not to notice. I said, I'm happy you've got someone sharp on your team. It sounded supportive. It felt like surrender. She smiled, kissed the air near my cheek, and went back to typing. Here's the part men don't like to admit. It wasn't fear of losing her body. It was the slow theft of being the first call, the inside joke, the person who gets the look. She said I didn't understand her world. The truth was worse. I wasn't invited into it. She came home riding a high. Numbers, names, a calendar full of wins. Bonus is locked. Team's on fire. We blew past target. She poured it out fast, like champagne she didn't want to go flat. I smiled, meant it, and told her about my night shift. HVAC alarms at 2 a.m., a compressor that fought back, oil up to my wrists, the kind of work that doesn't trend but keeps buildings breathing. Somewhere between her equity and my overtime, a third voice slid into the room. So, who brings in more? No one asked it, but it asked us. She grinned and said, "Guess dinner's on me forever," tossed off like a party favor. It wasn't a knife, more like a ruler tapped against my knuckles. Playful, but instructive. I laughed soft, the safe sound. Inside, something stepped backward. Money is a weird god. Even non-believers bow a little. I don't envy her wins. I respect them. But when success starts grading the people at your table, celebration turns into judgment with confetti. I rinsed the oil stink from my hands and let the sink run longer than needed. She kept talking targets. I kept nodding. The whole kitchen tilted an inch. We didn't fight. We just filed each other under different columns. The joke about forever paid for dinner hung light as a balloon and pulled like an anchor. Friday was coming. I could feel what it wanted to take. By Friday, she was back in that black dress, lightning in a bottle. "Going out with the team," she said, fishing for earrings. I tied the trash, pulled on my jacket. The air outside had that clean, mean cold that tells the truth no one asked for. Across the street, a dog barked once and gave up. She slid past me at the door, citrus and perfume, a goodbye kiss that landed somewhere near the idea of my cheek. "Don't wait up," she tossed over her shoulder, teasing, like every plan I had ever made involved a couch light and hope. I surprised myself. "Yeah," I said, steady. "Don't wait for me either." It came out calm, like a note you leave on a table you've already wiped clean. She paused, studied my face for a crack. Nothing to see. "Okay, Thomas," she said, not sure whether to laugh or reload. The door clicked. A draft moved through the hallway like a warning. I stood there holding a plastic bag of leftovers from our week. Coffee grounds, orange peels, a napkin with grease. The little things people throw away when they're done tasting. The house settled. My phone stayed quiet. Somewhere, music started without me. I took the trash to the curb and didn't check the time. The sentence I'd just spoken kept ringing, low and certain, like a bell underwater. It didn't feel like revenge, it felt like direction. And for the first time in months, I wanted to follow it. I sat at the kitchen table like a man waiting for a verdict and realized I was the jury. The house had that late Friday quiet, appliances humming, the kind of stillness that dares you to change nothing. I opened the laptop, typed, "Pine Lake Cabin Weekend." Photos loaded, fog on water, a porch with 2 chairs that didn't argue. My chest loosened just looking at it. The cursor blinked on a listing. I read the description twice like peace required fine print. 2 hours from Columbus, no neighbors within shouting distance, check in any time. I hovered over confirm, and my finger stalled like it knew what this click would cost. Not money, narrative. Once I pressed this, we stopped being a couple having a rough patch and become a man and a woman on different roads. I thought about the PTA laugh, the bar goodbyes, the face-down phone, about being an extra in my own house. Then I pictured steam off a mug in cold morning air, the sound you can finally hear when nobody is performing. I didn't count to 3. I just breathed and clicked. Ping, small sound, big door opening. My reflection sat in the dark screen a beat longer, like it needed proof. I closed the laptop, slid my wallet into my pocket, and felt the brand new weight of a plan. Direction instead of noise. I told myself the truth out loud so I couldn't dodge it later. This isn't payback, this is respect. The words fit in my mouth like something I should have been saying for years. I pulled a notepad from the drawer and started a letter. No speeches, no poetry, just lines a tired man can live by. No mocking disguised as humor, no public put-downs, ever. No flirting for attention, online or off. Therapy is not a punchline. Break a boundary, I walk. I stared at that last one. The room felt colder around it, like the house understood I meant it. I wrote it again, cleaner. If it happens again, I walk, for good. I pictured the arguments it would trigger, the names it would get called. Dramatic, controlling, petty. I pictured my mother's voice. Don't let anyone turn you into a joke you have to laugh at. I folded the page and slipped it into my shirt pocket, close enough to feel every time I moved. The clock on the wall ticked like it was keeping score. I wasn't angry. Anger wants a scene. I wanted structure, a way out that didn't require shouting to count. I checked the time, then the door, then the pocket again, paper warm from my skin. Respect isn't what you demand, it's what you refuse to trade away. Tonight, I stopped trading. There was a night, months back, when I suggested we see someone. Not a priest, not a friend, an actual therapist with a door that closes and a clock that doesn't lie. Jenna laughed, light and airy, like I'd offered a scented candle to a house fire. Don't be corny, Thomas. We're fine. I felt the floor tilt, so I changed the subject to errands and filters and anything that didn't have teeth. I kept that laugh in my pocket like a warning label. Men learn to avoid the drawer that bites them. I told myself therapy was dramatic, expensive, not us. Truth was simpler. I didn't want to be mocked for needing help. Tonight, with the cabin booked and the letter half formed, I wrote the word anyway. Therapy. I put it under the rules, not above them. Not a threat, a tool. I added, individual first, then maybe together. No jokes about it. I underlined the last line until the page pressed a ridge into the wood. My hand shook. The honest kind. Not fear, not rage. Relief. I'd finally said out loud what I'd been failing to defend in silence. A man doesn't lose his voice in a scream. He loses it in 100 swallowed sentences. I capped the pen, read the list again, and felt the room return to level. This is the story now, and I'm writing it. I opened the closet and reached for the things that know me better than anyone. Jeans that carry the outline of pliers and long days, flannel soft where the elbows learn to lean. I tossed them on the bed the way you stack reasons you don't have to explain. Next came the old photo album, wedding, first apartment, a picnic where the wind pushed her hair into my mouth and we laughed like kids. I slid it in, not as evidence but as proof I once belonged to something worth missing. On the counter I filled the thermos. Coffee tastes different when you pour it somewhere no one is performing. I checked batteries on the flashlight. There's a kind of dark that only honest light knows what to do with. Car keys on the hook waited without opinion. I took them down. The letter I'd folded earlier went into the outer pocket, close enough to tap like a badge if I got weak. I stood there, staring at a bag that was more than clothes. It was a small, stubborn life, zipped into shape. I pulled the zipper slow. The sound ran through the house like a line drawn in ink. No more pencils, no more erasing. The quiet after it closed was heavy and clean. I breathed it in and felt the weight settle on the good side of my chest. Not escape. Alignment. I turned off the closet light and let the dark agree with me. I sat with the bag at my feet and the letter a steady weight against my chest. No speeches left, no grand exit, just a phone in my hand and a choice that didn't need decoration. I opened our thread. The cursor blinked like a dare. I typed, "Don't wait up." 3 dots rose, thought about it, disappeared. I watched the screen hold its breath. Nothing came. Good. Explanations are where resolve goes to die. I didn't add a period. I didn't add a sorry. I didn't add a later. I deleted the next sentence before it existed. I hit send and felt the decision leave my hand and move into my life. I turned the phone face down and let the world be the size of this kitchen. The fridge hummed. The clock measured out the old version of me in seconds and let each one fall. My chair creaked. The bag's strap leaned against my boot like a dog that finally understands its time. 2 words. That's all it took. The kind of message that doesn't start a fight because it doesn't invite one. Not anger. Alignment. Not punishment. Proof. Men my age talk too much when we're scared and say nothing when we mean it. Tonight, I meant it. I slid the phone away, stood up into the quiet, and let it crown me. She came in late, the kind of late that smells like citrus and applause. Keys clattered, heels paused. Thomas? The name floated down the hallway like a habit looking for a home. No answer. Our bedroom light found the closet and told the truth for me. My side was a mouth that had taken one long bite out of our life. Shirts gone, space like a shadow. She touched empty hangers as if they could explain. Back in the kitchen, the letter waited on the table where we used to leave grocery lists and inside jokes. The lamp threw that soft gold light that usually forgives. Tonight it made everything look honest and cold. She picked up the page. I wasn't there to narrate it for her. I didn't owe footnotes anymore. I could see it without seeing it. The read, the reread, the breath she forgot to take. Her hand would tremble at the line that didn't blink. If it happens again, I walk. For good. Not a threat. A boundary with shoes on. Power doesn't yell. It rearranges the room. For years I'd laughed along to keep the peace. Tonight, the house laughed last. Quiet, level, unmoved. She whispered my name again, softer, as if there were versions of me she might still call back. There weren't. The kitchen stayed gold and distant. The door had already chosen a side. I didn't write to wound her. I wrote to stop bleeding. I hear my own voice in my head as she reads. You joked. Simple. Unfriendly. True. I let the words stand without pillows. Then the next line I knew would sting because it stung coming out of me. I hope they make you laugh the way I used to. There's a quiet cruelty in that, but it's the honest kind, the kind that doesn't hide in a crowd. I keep going. Respect isn't a punchline. That's the hinge. That's the door finally swinging the other way. I can see her eyes hit that line and try to negotiate with it. There's nothing to bargain with. Not this time. I need peace. 4 words with no decorations. Not forgiveness, not revenge. Peace. The kind you can drink in the morning without tasting metal. Thomas. My own name at the bottom looks like proof that a person can sign himself back into his life. I imagine her fingers pausing on the fold, her breath going short the way mine has 100 nights in a row. The letter isn't art, it's a map. The jokes stop, or I do. I'm not asking anymore. I'm informing. The house can keep the laughter. I'm taking back the room where my voice lives. I turned the key and the engine woke like an old friend who still knows why you called. Sleet misted the windshield. Not quite rain, not quite snow. Just enough to make the world honest. The dash lit up. Pine Lake, 2 hours. I pulled out before the doubt could put on shoes. Town slid by in familiar pieces. Gas stations, a church sign promising Sunday answers, the bakery that smells like a memory. The radio murmured low, some classic rock station holding a note from when I still knew every lyric. My hands settled at 10 and 2, grip steady, pulse steady, my name steady in my chest. There's a sound a road makes when you've finally told the truth. The tires carry it, this low, certain hymn. Streetlights thinned, houses gave way to fields sleeping under gray. I didn't check the mirror. I've spent enough years driving by what's behind me. I thought of the letter on the table, the closet half empty, the 2 words I'd sent before I left. None of it felt dramatic out here. It felt proportionate, correct, like the line on a level finally finding center. The town limit sign showed up and disappeared in a blink. I didn't look back. The car climbed a small rise and the road opened its palm. For the first time in months, my heartbeat matched something outside my body. I followed it north, where the lake was waiting and the next version of quiet had my name on it. The door gave a long wooden sigh when I pushed it open, like the place had been holding its breath for me. Inside, the air was clean with pine and old heat, cut wood, dry dust, a whisper of smoke from a fireplace that remembered work. I set the thermos on the table and listened to it thud once, a small claim on the space. My flannel went on a hook by the door. It looked like it belonged here more than I have belonged anywhere in months. I cracked a window. The lake answered with cold, the kind that bites and blesses in the same breath. Water moved in slow lines, metal gray, patient. A gull cut the sky and wrote nothing. The cabin wasn't fancy. It didn't need to be. It was 4 walls that didn't demand a performance and a roof that wouldn't drip contempt. I stood there and drew one long breath like a man coming up from deep water. No jokes, no audience, just boards, air, and room enough for the truth to sit down. Safety isn't soft, it's solid, it has weight, it holds. I poured coffee into the lid and watched the steam rise straight, no crosswind. For the first time in a long time, the quiet felt like a hand on my back, not a hand over my mouth. I let it stay there, steadying me for whatever came next. The phone started before I finished the first cup. Missed calls stacked like unpaid bills. Jenna's name. Jenna again. Unknown. Then Melissa. You okay? Need anything? A voice note from Jenna landed. 1 second, then 12. Thomas, It cut off. Another replaced it. I didn't press play. I already knew the rhythms. Joke, excuse, pivot, plea. I've danced that song with no music. I set the phone on the table and let it buzz until it learned I wasn't coming when called. The screen lit my name across the wood and went dark. Lit. Dark. A heartbeat I no longer obeyed. I turned the ringer off and heard the room return to itself. The faint tick of a wall clock, a small wind testing the eaves, the clean hush of a place with nothing to sell. Choosing silence isn't running away. It's refusing the script. It's answering chaos with a door that stays closed. I could text Melissa back, tell her I'm safe. I will. Later, when the message won't drag a convoy of follow-ups. Right now, I'm learning what my own no sounds like. Another call. Another. A pause that pretended to be mercy. I poured more coffee and didn't flinch. Power isn't loud. It doesn't gloat. It withdraws the audience and lets the show collapse on its own. I put the phone face down and let the cabin keep my side of the conversation. Quiet, sure, done explaining. The bathroom glass fogged with the first hot water I've enjoyed in months without rushing. I wiped a circle clear with the side of my hand and met a man I'd been ducking. A face lined where laughter used to sit, eyes that still negotiate when they should decide. I held my own stare long enough to feel the old habit try to slide in, minimize, deflect, make it small. No, I said to the steam and to myself. You forgot what respect feels like. The sentence landed low and right, where a gut punch teaches you something. I didn't add a speech. I didn't bargain with the mirror. I let the truth stand there between us like a tool finely named. I pictured every room where I smiled on command. PTA nights, dinners, hallways where jokes were knives wrapped in napkins. I watched the memory reel slow down until it was just me, nodding to survive. A man can live that way. He just gets smaller doing it. I wiped more glass, cleared the edges, watched my own features sharpen exactly as the fog retreated. It felt like turning a dial back to a station I knew by heart. Same mouth, new terms. I said it again, quieter. Respect. Then I nodded to the only vote that matters, the one from the man in the mirror, and shut the water off like closing a door I should have closed years ago. Coffee black, bread plain, the honest kind of breakfast that doesn't pretend to be anything else. The lake did its small work, ripples walking the same distance over and over. A single bird argued with morning in the trees and lost. I opened the notebook I'd carried like a passport and started to write lines I could live by, not slogans for someone else's approval. No public put-downs. Ever. Not at dinners, not in group chats, not just joking. Respect doesn't share a stage with applause. No mocking disguised as love. I know the difference. So does she. So do the friends who laughed. No flirting for attention, online or off. Private admiration that poisons a marriage is still poison. Therapy is required, not ridiculed. Individual first, then maybe together. We don't joke about the doctor when we're bleeding. If a boundary breaks, I walk. No second goodbye, no speech on the porch. I went back to the first line and pressed the pen so hard the word ever left a ridge through 2 pages. The page looked simple. The room felt steady. I tore the list clean and folded it into my pocket next to yesterday's letter, 2 pieces of paper warm with use. The bird finally gave up. The lake kept breathing. I took another sip and heard the promise louder than the quiet that held it. I keep this list, or I lose myself. I stared at the lake until the water started to look like advice I couldn't quite hear. Then I did the thing men avoid until the last minute. I called my mother. She picked up on the second ring, voice warm the way kitchens used to be. Thomas, you okay? I didn't dress it up. I'm learning how to say things out loud, I told her. There was a pause long enough to feel safe in. She knows the weight of pauses. She raised me on them. What happened? She asked, careful, not prying, like she was holding a thread and didn't want to pull too hard. She jokes in public, I said. I laugh so everyone else can get on with their night. I stopped laughing. My mother's breath moved softly through the speaker, the same rhythm that settled me after childhood fevers. "Son," she said, "don't let anyone turn you into a joke you have to laugh at." It landed like a brick under a wobbly table. Everything steadied. I swallowed, felt that old private heat behind my eyes. "I booked a cabin," I said. "I left a letter. Boundaries." "Good," she answered, simple as bread. "Respect is quiet, but it's strong. Keep yours. Call me tomorrow. Sleep if you can." "I will," I lied, grateful for the mercy of being believed. When we hung up, the room felt held together by something older than shame. I put the phone down and sat with the part of me that finally had an ancestor. The screen woke up like a nervous animal. Her messages arrived in a staggered line, each one trying a different key on a locked door. It was a joke. I let it sit. The lake didn't blink. "Where are you?" I watched the question mark ask for a map I wasn't drawing anymore. "We need to talk." We'd been needing to talk for a year, and all it produced were better costumes for the same truth. "Please." That one pressed a finger on a bruise that still answered to my name. I set the phone down, picked it up, set it down again. Silence is heavy until you learn where to put it. "I'm scared." There it was, the word that cut through the stage lighting. Not angry, not dismissive, scared. I felt something in me want to run in and fix it, the way I always have. Fire blanket, joke, apology, anything to make the room stop burning. I poured coffee instead, wrote one line in my notebook. "Fear doesn't erase contempt." Then I underlined it. Twice. I didn't reply. Not yet. Not from that place. If I answer her fear while she still laughs at my pain, I'll be performing again. Another bubble. "You're being dramatic." And then, as if she heard herself from outside, "I didn't mean it like that." The phone vibrated in my hand, warm and needy. I turned it face down and let the message I wasn't sending carry the only answer that mattered. Not this time. There was a version of me who would have grabbed the keys, broken every speed limit between here and home, and walked straight into the fire holding a wet towel and a joke. That man loved triage. He mistook pain management for love. Today, I stayed put. I poured coffee that didn't apologize for being strong and let the steam hit my face like a small sermon. The wind moved around the cabin and said more than any argument we've ever had. I listened to the roof settle, to the window test its latch, to the way a quiet room rewards a steady heart. My phone buzzed across the table, acting like a dog that hadn't learned the word stay. I looked at it and looked away. A simple sentence formed and refused to leave. "I don't rescue contempt." I wrote it down. Then I wrote it again, tighter, until the letters stopped shaking. It felt like turning a picture frame right side up. Love isn't a stage where one person wins the laugh and the other swallows it. Love's a place with rules that keep both people standing. If she wants help, I'll meet her where respect lives, not 1 inch before. The old reflex came to the door once more. I didn't open it. I took another drink, let the heat sit in my chest, and watched the phone go still. Not punishment, permission, to let consequences do the talking I should have done years ago. Money showed up like an auditor with a clipboard, eyes on every receipt. I remembered that slick little joke. Guess dinner's on me forever. It landed soft at the time and bruised later, like most insults that dress like charm. I thought about my hands, about compressors that fight back at 2 a.m., about winter air in a loading bay that steals your breath, about buildings no one praises that keep running because some man underpaid and unnoticed keeps turning wrenches until they do. My contribution doesn't post quarterly wins. It hums behind the walls and makes other people's mornings possible. I wrote, "Worth isn't a paycheck." Then I pressed the pen hard enough to dent the page beneath it. My father never said that out loud, but he lived it. Boots by the door, bills paid, house warm. The math wasn't sexy, but it was true. If you let a balance sheet grade your value, you'll spend your life curving your spine for tips. I won't. I bring home things you can't itemize: a working furnace, a steady presence, a man who gets up when it's dark because something needs fixing and no one else is coming. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. The room eased around me. The sentence stood there, clean and sure, like a friend who never asks for proof. Worth isn't a paycheck, isn't a... I folded the page and felt my back straighten without permission. The tone shifted like a weather front. The next string of messages came in hard and fast. This is childish. You're punishing me. Grow up. Then the angry face, the cartoon thunderhead people send when words won't do the damage. I watched them stack and felt nothing I could bargain with. Anger is a hook. It wants you to bite so it can tell its favorite story about how you always ruin everything. I wasn't hungry anymore. I typed nothing. I opened settings and slid a single switch. Do not disturb. The screen went quiet, not dead, just mine again. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was occupied by breath, by thinking, by the click of a pen and the scratch of paper where my life was getting new lines. Another message slipped through the cracks before the wall sealed. Answer your wife. The old reflex reached for the keys. I let it reach. I didn't let it drive. A man can lose a whole decade arguing with volume. Tonight I chose to argue with outcome. No reply is a reply when the script is broken. I poured a little more coffee, held the cup with two hands, and let the heat do what no speech ever has. Calm the part of me that still believed peace required me to surrender first. Outside, the lake didn't care who won. That helped. The fire spoke in small, honest pops. My heart finally answered at the same pace. I pulled the notebook back and wrote what recovery would actually look like. Not hope, not slogans, but terms two adults could sign without lying. 1. Therapy, individual. Not a meme, not a punchline. Real calendar, real sessions. We don't mock the mechanic when the engine knocks. We don't mock the doctor when the body hurts. 2. No public put-downs. Not in front of friends, PTA, coworkers, texts read out loud for applause. If it happens, we leave the room and the event. Non-negotiable. 3. Digital transparency for 90 days. No work husband DMs, no flirty streaks, no private channels that make the marriage the last to know. Phones stay face up until trust grows back. 4. Weekly check-in, sober. Sunday night, no alcohol, no shouting. What worked, what didn't, what needs repair. 5. Break a boundary, we separate. Not a threat. A plan. No second goodbye. I read it twice and added a line at the top. Respect is the point. Then I signed my name like a man co-signing a life he intends to live. The ink looked steady. So did my hands. I folded the page, slipped it with the other letter, and let the quiet close around both like a safe. The fire settled. My pulse did too. Not victory. Architecture. A frame strong enough to hold whatever tomorrow tried to bring through the door. Gravel spoke first, that harsh grind under tires that says someone came here with momentum. I was on the porch with coffee that had gone from hot to useful. The car door opened slow, like even the handle knew this wasn't a visit. Jenna stepped out, eyes swollen, hair pulled back like regret. She held the letter, creased and softened by too many reads. Thomas. My name sounded different in open air. Smaller. Honest. I set the cup down on the railing and let both hands show empty. No invitation. No defense. Just a man and his ground. She walked closer and stopped when the boards announced her wait. We stood there with the lake pretending to mind its own business. The wind pushed once and then held its breath. She started, the word breaking before it earned a sentence. The car ticked as it cooled, counting seconds out loud. I didn't fill them. That used to be my job. Patch the silence, throw a joke over the hole. Not today. Her fingers tightened on the letter. She searched my face for a welcome mat and found floor. I could feel the old reflex reach for my keys, for my cape, for my excuse. I kept my hands where they were and let the moment be what it was. Two people at the edge of a story that wasn't going back. Talk, I said finally. Not a command, not an opening, a boundary that allowed words without surrender. She went with the line that used to end every argument. It was just a joke. I didn't sigh. I didn't look away. That's the problem. She blinked, as if the words changed shape on the way to her. I kept my voice level, the way you talk to a dog shaking in a thunderstorm. Jokes are supposed to land soft. Yours drew blood. Not once. Not in private. In rooms where I had to laugh to keep from drowning. Her mouth opened, closed. I didn't mean... I know you didn't mean to destroy anything, I said. That's how it happens. Little cuts. Nights like the PTA, dinners with friends, a phone face down while you laugh at a message I'm not allowed to see. You can call it teasing. My ribs call it something else. A tear slipped before she could stop it. She looked down at the letter like it might answer for me. I thought you knew I was kidding. I knew you were performing, I said. And I knew my part. Smile, nod, be a good sport. Until I couldn't. Respect isn't a punchline. I said it in the letter because I needed to hear it out loud. I let the quiet do the punishing, not my tone. If you want to talk, we can. If you want applause, I'm closed. I picked up my coffee again. Steady hand, steady cup. Choose which one you came for. She took a breath like it hurt, and finally put the performance down. I pushed because you never pushed back, she said. I made you the joke because you let me. She wasn't sneering. She was cataloging damage. I nodded once. No victory lap, no sermon. Just a man owning his part. I let too many nights pass under the heading, keep the peace. I humiliated you, she added, eyes on the porch boards. In front of people. I liked the attention. It made me feel big. The word died in her mouth. I didn't move. Public laughter costs private respect, I said. I paid it for years. She looked up, finally meeting me where the air was thin. I thought you'd never leave, she whispered. There it was, the true confession. Not love, not hate, expectation. She'd measured my compliance and bet the house on it. I let the sentence sit between us like a mirror that doesn't blink. I reached into my pocket and touched the folded paper. I won't live where I'm the punchline, I said. Not anymore. Her eyes followed my hand. I didn't flourish the list. Not yet. I pointed to the chair beside me. This only works if we tell the truth without props. You wanted big. I wanted quiet. We built a stage and called it marriage. She nodded, slow, the way a person nods when the pain finally has a name. The wind moved once. We didn't. I unfolded the page and read it like an oath, not a threat. First, individual therapy, real appointments, not lampooned, not delayed. We don't joke about a doctor when something's broken. She swallowed. Okay. Second, no public put-downs. Not at dinners, PTA, group chats, or work drinks. If it happens, we leave the room. Non-negotiable. Her chin dipped. Third, 90 days of digital transparency. No work husband DMs. No flirty side channels. Phones face up until trust can stand on its own. A flinch, then a nod. Fourth, weekly check-in, sober. Sunday night. What worked, what didn't, what needs repair. No alcohol, no audience. She wiped her nose with the back of her hand, almost angry at it. Fifth, break a boundary, we separate. No second goodbye. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't sell it. I finished and placed the paper between us on the small table like a carpenter laying a level. The bubble found center. This isn't leverage, I said. It's the minimum for dignity, mine and yours. She stared at the list a long time, the way a person looks at a map that makes sense and also hurts. If I try, she asked, do you come home today? No, I said, steady. Trying happens first. Results, not promises. The wind crossed the porch and lifted one corner of the page. I pressed it flat with 2 fingers and let my silence say the rest. Boundaries aren't negotiators. They're doors, either opened or closed. She stared at the list until her eyes steadied. Then, quiet. Are you coming home today? No. The word landed flat and true, like a board that finally sits flush. She wrapped her arms around herself, the chill not entirely from the wind. I'll try therapy, she said, voice thin but unprotected. Don't joke about it, I answered. Not with me, not with anyone. She nodded. No roll of the eyes, no cleverness, just that small, human nod people make when the ground has rules again. We stood there in the clean noise of the lake, paper between us, time moving but not rushing. "I can start calling around today," she offered, almost defensive at her own effort. "I'll send you the times." "Good," I said. "And the other things, public put-down stop, phones face up for 90 days, Sunday check-ins." "I heard you," she said, and for once I believed it wasn't a period at the end of an argument. It was a comma at the start of work. She tried once more, softer. "If I start, can you come back and we work from home?" I shook my head. "I'm not moving back today." No anger, no flourish, withholding the reward that's kept this cycle spinning. Her mouth tightened, then eased. We let the sentence stay whole between us, a line neither of us stepped over. Not punishment, terms. The cup warmed my hand. The quiet kept my spine straight. For the first time, my no felt like care, for both of us. She took a breath, put 2 fingers on the table to steady herself, and said it like a receipt finally printed. "I'm sorry." No but. No story about childhood. No weather report to blame. Just 2 words that didn't reach for a costume. I let them stand. They looked smaller than the damage and bigger than any fix we've tried. "I should have stopped the jokes," she added, eyes on the paper, not me. "I liked how people looked at me when I did it. I didn't want to notice what it did to you." I nodded once, not triumph, not relief, recognition. "I let it happen," I said. "Too many nights. I thought keeping the peace was love. It was silence." We didn't hug. We didn't script a clean ending. We sat with the porch boards under our feet and the lake pushing light across the surface like someone ironing a shirt that still has creases. The wind ran a hand through the trees and backed off. "Okay," she whispered. "Therapy. The rules. I'll start today." "Good," I said, and let that be enough syllables for the moment. The apology didn't fix a thing. It didn't need to. It named one. Most days, that's the only door that actually opens. We watched a gull miss and circle back. Nobody cheered. Nobody jeered. The quiet held. Somewhere inside it, something small and important stayed upright, the truth, unperformed. We sat with the list between us until the next truth stepped out. "Where are the boundaries with Aiden?" I asked. No flair, no trap, just the line that needed ink. She flinched, then tried honesty that still wanted makeup. It's not like that. I exaggerate. It feels good to be noticed." I let the wind do the judging. "That's an emotional affair," I said. The words didn't shout. They landed. Clean. Final. She looked down at the letter like it might translate what I'd just said into something prettier. It didn't. I didn't rush to fill the air. Silence did the work I used to ruin by talking. I liked having someone excited to hear me. Her voice went small, like a light turned to night mode. I nodded once. "I know the hunger," I said, "but feeding it by starving your house isn't a diet. It's a plan to burn it down." She swallowed hard. "I can cut it off." "Do it because it's wrong," I said, "not because I'm watching." She finally met my eyes. No show there, just the first plain weather after a long storm forecast. I let the moment stand. Names have power. We'd been bleeding around one. Now it had a label, and labels decide what gets treated and what gets thrown away. I kept my silence, and the truth kept its shape. I could feel the next bruise asking for daylight. "Money isn't respect," I said. No edge, just the fact. She winced like the sentence had a past. "I forgot you keep the house running," she said. "HVAC, busted outlets, dead water heater, things I never think about unless they break." I nodded. "You joke, you win, and you don't see what you lose." Her eyes glassed over. Second wave. Real tears, not performance. I didn't move to catch them. Comfort too fast is a rug over a stain. "I thought the money would cover it," she said. "The dinners, the trips. I thought applause meant we were okay." "Applause pays the room," I said. "Respect pays the rent." I looked at my hands, scar at the thumb from a stubborn bolt, nails clean now but never quite. My value doesn't spike on a spreadsheet. It hums in the walls. Warm air in January, a fridge that stays cold, A man who shows up at 2 a.m. because heat matters. She nodded, smaller. I made you a punchline, she said, and I did it with cash in my pocket. Cash can't carry a marriage, I said. Hands can, words can, boundaries can. She broke again, quieter than before, like a house settling after a wind. I let the silence be a chair she could sit in. That's when the scale finally moved, away from who won the joke, toward who kept the lights on. Respect returned to the room like power after an outage, steady, unshowy, essential. She asked for a roadmap like she was willing to hold the wheel. What now? 90 days apart, I said. You do your work, I do mine. No thunder in it, just the math. Sunday check-ins, 10 minutes, sober. What worked, what didn't, what needs repair. I reached for the notebook and wrote it down in block letters so neither of us could misremember later. She watched the pen like it was drawing a border where the wars stop. We don't live together during this, I added. Not to punish, to be clear. Space is how we break the reflex. She nodded, and I could see every old shortcut flicker and die. No quick dinners to fake progress, no we're fine selfies, no bed making the decision for us. Her eyes asked for one last soft thing. Do we hug? I let the question sit. The porch boards, the list, the new rules, all of it said the same word before I did. No, not today. We weren't closing a movie. We were opening a contract. Touch would lie for us, and I was done hiring liars. She looked away, then back, then down at the page. Okay, she said, voice small and exact. 90 days, Sundays, separate houses. Results, not promises, I said. It hurt clean, like alcohol on a cut. Not because there was no love left, but because love finally had to share the room with structure. That was the decision. Separation with terms, hard and fair. We both heard it click. She stood, smoothed the list with her palm, and walked toward the steps. At the gravel, she turned once, the way people do when they're not sure if the past is waving or just wind. I didn't move. She opened the car door, slid in, and the engine gave that small complaint old cars make when asked to go before they're ready. Tires met stones, that grinding sound like pencils snapping, and the cabin returned to its own heartbeat. I stayed where I was, hands wrapped around the cup, heat circling my fingers like a promise I could actually keep. The lake went flat, ironed by a wind that had finally made up its mind. I matched my breathing to it. In, out. Nothing fancy, just steady. The road at the hill took her out of sight before it took her out of hearing. I listened to the sound of leaving get smaller until it didn't exist, and I did not chase it. Not with a shout, not with a text, not with the kind of compromise that buys 24 calm hours and charges interest for months. My heart slowed to something reasonable. The cup cooled to something honest. I sat there and let the absence do what presence never could, prove that my life still worked at idle. Sad, yes, but quiet the good way, the kind that doesn't ask you to lower yourself to keep it. Somewhere down the road, she'd start dialing numbers that begin change. Up here, I guarded the one change that mattered. I stayed seated. I let my no stand on its own legs and watched the water hold its line. I moved through the cabin like a man counting blessings he can finally afford. I folded the shirts I'd worn here, denim softened by use, flannel that kept its word, and zipped the bag shut, the teeth meeting like a decision. The fireplace was more ash than flame now. I raked it clean, the small gray hill a record of warmth I didn't have to explain. One by one, I clicked the lamps off, letting the room return to its natural shape. The dark didn't threaten. It understood. At the table, the notebook waited open where I'd left it. I wrote the line that had been walking around my ribs since she drove away, then read it out loud so it would stick. Peace is expensive. Pay it. The words held. Not clever. True. They cost what they cost. No discount, no coupon for pain avoided. I ran my hand over the page until the ink no longer shined. The quiet didn't feel empty. It felt earned. I checked the pockets, keys, folded letters, the list that turned air into structure. I took one last breath of pine and cooled coffee, and thanked whatever part of me survived long enough to learn this. Sometimes the bravest thing a man can do is pick up after himself, the mess, the story, the habits, and leave a place tidier than he found it. Then I shouldered the bag and let the door close behind me without flinching. The key turned, the engine caught, steady and unbothered, like it had more faith in me than I did. I backed out slow and watched the cabin shrink in the rear view, a good room getting smaller because my life needed to get bigger. Gravel snapped under the tires, a rough applause I chose to accept. The trees gave way to road. The radio hummed a song I half knew and didn't need to finish. I drove without checking the clock. North became south. A weekend became a boundary with dates on it. The mirror held the last slice of the porch until it didn't. Air moved through the vents clean. My hands rode the wheel like they'd remembered something simple. Hold, don't grip. I tried the sentence once, quiet enough to hear it and loud enough to believe it. I'm not the punchline. The car didn't argue. I said it again. I'm not the punchline. The words fit better the second time, like boots after rain. Third time, it felt less like defense and more like direction. A mile later, the mantra was just breathing. The road leveled. So did I. Past me would have chased a laugh to keep a life. This version let a life return without one. The sign for town approached, then passed. I didn't speed. I didn't stall. I only carried forward what could ride in the front seat with dignity. I'm not the punchline. And I drove like a man who finally knew what that meant. It started as a joke. That's the line I keep coming back to, not because it was clever, but because it was a map. Every laugh after that showed me where I'd been handing away inches of myself and calling it love. I'm done measuring my worth by who claps. I learned respect the hard way. By refusing the easy fix, the late-night speech, the hug that lies for you. Boundaries on paper, then boundaries in practice. No public put-downs, no flirting for applause, therapy that isn't a punchline, a real 90 days where effort has proof and promises don't spend. The future isn't a montage. It's appointments kept, Sundays honored, phones face up, and the word no used kindly and on time. Maybe we rebuild, maybe we don't. But either way, I'm not auditioning in my own house anymore. There's a moment every man has to pick between peace and applause. I picked peace. And if you need a line to carry with you, take this one and don't water it down. Respect yourself enough to leave the stage when the show turns you into a joke. If this hits you where you live, tell me one boundary you wish you'd set sooner. Drop it in the comments. Somebody needs your sentence tonight. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. I'm Thomas Gray. I'm not the punchline, and I'm walking forward with both hands free.